Okay, so we are on to a book review script. So you're writing a book review, and this is just what you're going to say for the book review. And we'll use this for another project down the road. So what you need first is a hook or an intro. And a hook or an intro, it's meant to grab their attention like a fish lure or a fish hook would grab a fish. So a lot of times it's done with a question, an interesting fact, an interesting quote from the book, but it hooks them. After that, you're going to tell us a little bit about the book with the body. So hook, and then the body. The body has the setting where it takes place, the key characters, and then the genre or the type of book. And then finally in the body, I want you to include why you'd recommend this book. So after we're done with the body, then we are on to the clincher. The clincher is something that continues to hold the interest or the intrigue. What is it that is going to draw them in and make them want to read that book? It might end in suspense or in a question or an interesting fact or even a quote, again, from the book. I would recommend tying it in with the beginning. So if you start with a question, end with a question. If you start with the fact, end with the fact. If you start with the quote, end with a quote. You don't have to. You can mix and match. So this is my example. I went with Hatchet. And so I'm going to start out with my hook. And my hook, I could have a question like, how long could you survive alone in the wilderness? And that says along, but it's supposed to be alone in the wilderness. An interesting fact, did you know moose kill more people than any other animal? Now, it can't just be a random fact. Did you know that the sky is blue? It has to tie into the book. So this actually ties into the book because he actually has an encounter with a moose. Interesting question. Oops, interesting quote. My name is Brian Robeson. I'm headed for the oil fields in Canada. I do not know how to fly a plane. Is anybody listening to me? Okay, so that's actually a really intense quote from the book. I didn't read it very intense, but you get the idea. Then on to the body. So those are a couple ideas for the intro for what I would use. The body, tell a few interesting facts about the story, include setting, characters, and genre. So the setting. Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. So I'm saying where it takes place, northern woods of Canada. The characters, Brian Robeson. And then the genre or type of book. You'll be drawn into this adventure novel as it's bound to keep you glued to the very last page. So I put it in sentence form, but I snuck in the genre, which is it's an adventure novel. So Northern Woods of Canada, setting, Brian Robeson, character, adventure novel, genre or type of book. And then I put it in sentence form. So all together, when you put those three things together, it should flow into a paragraph like this. Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. You'll be drawn into this adventure novel as it's bound to keep you glued to the very last page. So it all should flow as one paragraph. And then why you'd recommend the book. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. So along with your recommendation, you need to say the actual title of the book and the author. And then the clincher. Something that draws them into the end. So again, you could end with a question, interesting fact, or quote. I went with a question, will he survive? Find food or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. So that's kind of my example. When I put it all together, my intro up at the top, my body, and then my clincher. How long would you survive stranded alone in the wilderness? Set in the northern woods of Canada, Brian Robeson is left alone to fend for himself. For anyone who loves nature, adventure, and action, I would highly recommend reading Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. Will he survive, find food, or be rescued? You'll have to read to find out. So that's my example. This is all you have to do. What it's going to end up looking like when you're done is just, you can do it in PowerPoint, but I would want it all in one slide, or you can do it in Microsoft Word, and it's just going to look like a paragraph. If you want to separate out the intro, the body, and the conclusion, that would be fine. And then put your name at the bottom by Mr. Anand. Save it, file save as, and hand that baby in. That's all there is to it. That is the first part of this next lesson, but it is an individual assignment.